All right, so this video on the first 12 is going to focus on figures made for different foreign markets. So we have Spain, Mexico, um, Australia, Brazil. So I'm going to go over each one of these figures. This is one of each of the first 12 from a different country. Okay, so the first one we're going to go over is Sand People, Tusken Raider. This is one that I got recently. This is Pac. I think it's pronounced Pac, P-O-C-H. Could be Pash. It's from Spain. And Pac, early on, they were part of a company called PBP. Pac was one of the P's. And Pac was in charge of making the toys for this company, while the other two companies made electronics and books and games and stuff. So these early ones said Pac, and what made them different is they didn't actually inject any of the plastic there in Spain. Instead, they imported the parts from the Hong Kong factory, so the same parts that Kenner was using for the United States market. And they would paint the parts and assemble them right there in Spain. So Pac are always going to have different paint, usually than their Kenner counterparts. This one was made with the Unitoy mold, and I got it bare bones with a big ugly black stain on the back of the head that cleaned off really nice. Just because you see some markings on the figures doesn't mean it won't clean off. Usually, some water, wet paper towel, and some liquid dishwashing soap usually cleans them off pretty good. And I'm going to show you one thing with Pac. When they assembled their figures, there's a thing called sonic welding. And sonic welding creates a lot of heat that should stay away from the figure, but Pac did not have very good equipment, and their sonic welding often led to melt marks that you see on the rear end right there, that big round spot. That's a melt mark. And there's the Unitoy country of origin. So yeah, I bought a nice Unitoy sand person and took his staff and cape and gave it to this one. So this is Pac, made in Spain, assembled in Spain, painted in Spain, injection molded in Hong Kong. So this is the Pac sand person. Next up, we have Stormtrooper, and this is the Lily Letty version, the Mexican version, made in Mexico for the Mexican market. And there you see no country of origin. And the Mexican one, it's different mold and much wider mouth than the Kenner counterparts. You know, one of the fun things about buying these Stormtroopers is their face masks are so different depending on what factory, and even the different factories made different versions themselves. The Letty version has a really wide mouth there, and really nice figure. Invested in these stands. I got these from Ian's Display Accessories. So this is Lily Letty. They had the license to make the figures in Mexico. And so some of the figures, they just used a Hong Kong mold and didn't bother taking out the Hong Kong. But a lot of their figures, they made their own molds. So this is the Lily Letty Stormtrooper from Mexico. All right, so this is Princess Leia, and you see the stances Glasslight, and they were in Brazil, and they made a handful of figures back then. With Glasslight also, their figures were actually made around 1988, and here's her date stamp, and there's no country of origin on there. This one's been played with. It's missing the cape and the gun. I got a good deal on it. You know, to get a complete one in nice condition is just crazy money, and I didn't want to spend that much, so I was willing to spend less for a really cool played with one. Glasslight, as I said, they got the license to make some figures down in Brazil, and they did really cool variants of them, usually very different plastic than the Kenners. They also made the figures right around 1988 or so. So nobody else was making Star Wars figures anymore, but Glasslight decided to make some for the Brazilian market. They made some for the Droids cartoons as well, either Droids or Ewoks. I don't collect those. So anyway, that's Princess Leia from Glasslight in Brazil. All right, so C-3PO. And this is a very special one. This is made in Japan by a company called Takara. They had the license to make the figures in Japan just during the Star Wars era. And then for Empire Strikes Back, Popey had the license in Japan, and then for Return of the Jedi, Sukuda had it. So Takara only had the license for a couple of years, and they only produced 3 of their own figures. The rest of the figures, they just imported regular Kenner figures and put their card or their sticker on the card. Here's what's so cool about this one. I'm going to pull him up, and I've done other videos with him too. And there you can see he's got that alternate head sculpt. He's completely different sculpt than the Kenner version, and totally different face, totally different body. And what's really cool is where all the Kenners say 1977, this one's 1978 Japan. There you see the GMFGI, it's licensed, and the Japan. Takara only made 3 figures like this. They did C-3PO here, and they did Darth Vader and a Stormtrooper. Both of those also say 1978 Japan. Both of those are also different sculpts than the Kenners. They made their own molds for them. This one, they're very hard to find. When you do, they go for crazy money. Right now, I don't know if there are any on eBay at all. But this is one of my favorite figures that I have in the entire collection. And it's one that I'll hang on to for a while. It's in beautiful condition. There's the back of it there. They also use a different, Kenner used a rivet in the back. These guys used a Phillips screw. At least here in the States, we call that a Phillips screw. Anyway, that is C-3PO from Takara for the Japanese market. All right, we'll go back to Spain again. This one is PBP. Talked about them before. So as I said, in the early days, PBP, they put the name PAC on the packaging. And during that era, they didn't do any injection molding of the plastic there in Spain. They just imported the parts and painted them and assembled them there in Spain. Later on, they did get their own equipment and did the injection molding there. So when they did that, they started putting PBP on their labeling, on the packaging. And that's where this one is. So this is Chewbacca from PBP, made in Spain for the Spanish market. They also put a lot of their figures on tri-logo cards, and they got even Palatoy would take PBP figures and put them on Palatoy cards or in baggies. This one here is made in Spain. The PBPs that are made in Spain, none of them have a COO, country of origin. Most of the time there's some kind of a scar or something there. Here you see Chewbacca, no country of origin. And the PBPs, they made nice looking figures. PAC, like I said, they leave the melt marks and sloppy paint jobs sometimes, but during the PBP era, they did a much better job. So this is a really nice Chewbacca, genuine PBP crossbow, and this one's really nice. So this is Chewbacca PBP made in Spain. So next we have Jawa. This one is Lily Letty, again from Mexico, and there you can see the stand. I'll bring him in a little bit. You see his eyes. This is how you can always tell you have a Lily Letty, because they do say Hong Kong on the back. So this was made in Mexico, but they didn't bother changing the mold and taking the Hong Kong out. So right there you see his almond-shaped eyes and the darker brown almond-colored eyes a little bit. That's when you know it's a Lily Letty. The Kenners don't have those oval-looking eyes. There's some level of round or different sizes, but that's how you can tell Lily Letty. And Letty, they did Jawa. They have some really interesting variants on his cape. The Jawa figure itself, by itself, isn't, there's not a ton of them out there. You can find them, but the capes, they made one cape that was cloth that was just like the Kenner ones. That's the most common one. They made another cloth cape with a removable hood, which goes for a crazy amount of money. And then they made one with the vinyl cape. And as many of you may know, Kenner was making the Jawas originally with a vinyl cape very early on. Letty made some in Mexico. Toll Toys made some for Australia. But early on, they stopped making it and went with the cloth cape. So whenever you get a vinyl cape Jawa, they go for crazy money. The Letty one goes for even more. So this one I just got at bare bones. He didn't come with a gun or anything. As I said, when you get these complete, sometimes they're just more money than I want to spend on them. So if you're looking for investments with these figures, the accessories are nice investments because people hoard those and most of them got lost, so there's just not as many accessories out there. When you want to buy a figure, it's up to you how much you want to spend, but it gets really pricey with some of these foreign figures when they have their full accessories. Maybe one of these days I'll upgrade to with a cape and a gun form, but this is Lily Letty from Mexico, the Jawa. All right, so here we have a PAC R2-D2 again, injection molded in Hong Kong and then imported to Spain, and imported into Spain where it was assembled and painted. The PAC R2 has that purplish, really small red eye in the middle. This one, you know, most of the paint, the silver paint on the dome is gone. It's got a dark blue dome on the head. And this one's been played with, again, a PAC R2-D2 in near mint condition. Goes for crazy money. I got a pretty good deal on this one. You can see the sticker's a little rough. There's a paint on the side. But again, you know, these were just put together in Spain and painted in Spain. The sticker and all the parts came in from one of the factories in Hong Kong. There you see. I forget what mold this is. But this is the PAC R2-D2, assembled in Spain, painted in Spain, injection molded in Hong Kong for the Spanish market. All right, here we have a Lily Letty Death Squad Commander, made in Mexico. A little bit different face paint applications for him. Not a major difference from the Kenner ones. There's what the COO, or the lack of COO, looks like, the no COO. It's a blobbed out Hong Kong, so the date is there, but where it says Hong Kong, you'll see it's all blobbed out. A little bit of the lettering does exist. That's how you know you have a Lily Letty. These were made in Mexico, for Mexico. Also, a lot of the Lily Letty figures got put on Kenner card backs that said made in Mexico and sent into the US and Canadian markets. So these did show up in the US market as well. But it was made by Lily Letty in Mexico, and this is the Death Squad Commander. All right, next we have ObiWan Kenobi. This one is also from Mexico, Lily Letty. And, you know, Kenner made some dark gray hair ones also, but not quite this dark. And his eyes are a little bit darker paint than the Kenner one, or filled in more anyway. That is the original cape and lightsaber for him. And I'll show you his no country of origin stamp there, just a date stamp. And again, this is made in Mexico for the Mexican market. You can see I have some museum putty on the bottom of his foot there because he doesn't stay on the stand very well, and that helps him stay on there. That's a nice fix if you're setting up your displays and they won't hold on to their weapons or they fall off the stands. You can use some museum putty. Doesn't harm the figure at all. It works really great. So Lily Letty, Mexico, ObiWan Kenobi. And this is a really cool variant. And it's also the only Obi-Wan that I have from any other country. So it was pretty easy to pick this one for the video. ObiWan Kenobi, made in Mexico. All right, next we have Han Solo. This is PAC, assembled and painted in Spain. His hands and chest are much more pale compared to the Kenner counterparts. And also, with all the other Kenner, all of them, this outer ridge, this outer rim around the belt buckle right there is also painted, and PAC didn't paint that. So this one, again, was assembled and painted in Spain for the Spanish market in the early days, and then the word PAC, which is what you see here, would have been put on the packaging. And again, during that era, they just assembled and painted the figures there. They didn't do any injection molding. This one's a little bit played with, but overall it's a nice condition. It's hard to find even Kenner big head Hans without any paint loss on the head. I have a couple, but they lost a lot of paint on the head on these. But anyway, this is PAC, Han Solo. I've become a big PAC PvP fan over the years, and I figure I'll still be buying more. So this is PAC Han Solo. All right, so Luke Skywalker, my favorite figure to collect. This one, you can see it says Meccano. Meccano was the French company. They had the license to produce figures for France. They did not do any injection molding in France. They had them made somewhere else. I'm not sure where, but there are several figures. There's Luke, Boba Fett, Walrus Man are the only 3 Meccano figures I have, but they made several other figures that are only found on Meccano cards. And for instance, this Luke, instead of a country of origin, it just has a raised bar, and this was a Cater factory mold. And I don't know for sure what country Meccano had their figures made in, but they had to take the Hong Kong part out. So Meccano, as I said, they didn't make them in France, but they were made for the French market. They just had them made somewhere else. Very cool variant. This one's in pretty nice condition. Lightsaber's missing its tip, but that is the original lightsaber. And it's a very cool variant. So this is Meccano, made for the French market. And here we have maybe my favorite variant here, probably second after C-3PO. This is Toll Toys Australia Darth Vader. There are some people that insist that this wasn't exclusive to Toll Toys, but whenever we do see Toll Toys packaging, it seems to be this version. What makes it Toll Toys is, first and foremost, you can see the country of origin just says Taiwan. Now, Kenner released made in Taiwan figures for the US market, but the ones that say Taiwan, I don't know, there's just, you don't seem to find them on any packaging other than Toll Toys Australia or New Zealand. And so Toll Toys, as I just said, they were the Australian company that released figures in Australia and New Zealand. They're on Variant Villain, they're credited with 2 figures of their own, this one and a Jawa that came with the vinyl cape. This figure also is a completely different Darth Vader sculpt. You can see that big bulbous left cheek tube there. Very crude making on this one. You can see the lightsaber hilt has some extra plastic there. Just the whole thing is just kind of low quality, but one of my favorite variants. That's the original lightsaber. And just like made in Taiwan lightsabers, it's rounded at the end, missing its tip. But I've done a couple videos with this figure in it. This is just such a cool one. Very, very hard to find. I have 2. I have another one that's just says Taiwan that doesn't have nearly as big of a left cheek tube there. But this is Toll Toys Australia, and super cool variant, and very hard to find. If you find them, they usually, like in this condition, $250 to $300, maybe more. If they have the full tip on the lightsaber, definitely more. So, and that's if you're lucky enough to find one. They're very hard to find. So Darth Vader Toll Toys Australia, and if you ever get a chance to buy one, get one, because you might not get another chance. All right, thanks for watching my video on the first 12 from different countries. Please go ahead and hit subscribe and check out my other videos. And have a great day, and you'll be hearing from me again soon.